The 15-year-old boy sets his sights on the Cadillac at first glance, but the salesman mocks him for being completely unable to afford it, and insistently demand that he call his parents. But when the boy's mother shows up just in time, the crowd is instantly shocked into absolute silence, because she happens to be the wealthiest, noble lady in the area. Without a second thought, she tells her son to pay the bill and leave, although George reminds her that she should always haggle when buying things. Having just bought the new ride, Anne announces she is going to take them to find a new father. But George bets that his mom will obediently pack up and head back home in less than a week. It turns out that just moments ago, Anne, who was supposed to be traveling out of town, suddenly returned home early, only to unexpectedly stumble upon her husband's romantic affair right as she walked through the door. If it were any other woman, she would have already pinned the mistress down and given her a severe beating, but Anne refuses to do so. There isn't a shred of panic on her face, and instead, she remains as calm as if she were dealing with a trivial matter. However, every time he sees Anne leave in a fit of pique, her husband Danny remains completely unconcerned because he is the sole breadwinner of the family, firmly believing that Anne cannot survive without him. But this time, Danny still underestimates Anne's determination. She not only wants to leave, but also plans to take her 2 sons with her, absolutely refusing to leave her children to an irresponsible man. She doesn't waste another breath on Danny, and the moment she presses the elevator button, she leaves the betrayer with nothing but an effortlessly unbothered silhouette. But the moment she takes the first step into divorce, Anne finds herself in an awkward situation. She wants to pick up her sons from school, only to discover that George and Robbie have long since transferred to a different one. As a mother, she is shockingly unfamiliar with her own children's lives. Fortunately, the principal informs her of the new school's address, allowing her to successfully pick up her 2 sons. Right after that, she heads straight to the bank to withdraw her savings and jewelry. Before leaving, Anne doesn't hesitate to toss away her wedding ring, putting a complete end to this marriage. She hands her younger son George a stack of cash, asking him to go buy a car for transportation, and decides she is going to find a new father for her sons. But George places a bet that his mom will obediently pack up and head back home in less than a week. Hearing this, Anne simply raises her hand to adjust the rearview mirror, instructing George not to look in it, and telling him that no matter what happens behind them, he should just keep his eyes locked forward and never look back. For their first stop, they arrive in Boston. At the hotel entrance, Anne bumps into a gentleman who unexpectedly turns out to be one of her former suitors, who once even attempted to unalive himself after she rejected his marriage proposal. Anne feels Wallace is a solid candidate, as he is not only an upper-class gentleman, but also freshly divorced. So, with the styling help of her older son Robbie, she changes into a flawless outfit, ready to go enjoy dinner with Wallace. George, however, completely disagrees with this. At the restaurant, they initially have a highly pleasant conversation, but after a few rounds of drinks, Wallace shows his true colors, loudly crying about his business failures while completely ignoring the gazes of the other guests. Wallace's voice grows louder and louder, making Anne feel like she's sitting on pins and needles under the strange stares of the people around them. She has no choice but to use the excuse of touching up her makeup to hide in the restroom, trying hard to calm her emotions and comforting herself that everything will be all right. But when she steps out, she finds that Wallace has long disappeared without a trace. The cash in her bag has been completely cleaned out, and what's even more hateful is that he hasn't even paid the restaurant bill. The waiter shadows Anne's every step, demanding the payment. Just as Anne is in a state of extreme embarrassment, a man dressed in a military uniform appears. Harlan generously helps Anne cover the bill and mentions that he met her at a party last year. From there, their relationship develops at lightning speed, and they quickly become engaged. George, however, loathes this man because Harlan always calls him George Boy and forcefully slaps his back. At the dinner table, as Harlan boasts about his brilliant political opinions, he is met with George's subtle shade and even an audible laugh. This action is something Harlan simply cannot tolerate. Harlan snaps back to reality, realizes his loss of composure, hastily apologizes, and explains that he is just too exhausted. That night, George calls his father, wanting the man to take him back home. Unexpectedly, a gentle female voice comes through the receiver. George's heart instantly drops halfway to the floor. At this moment, Harlan suddenly seeks him out, demanding that he must obey his every command. George isn't afraid of Harlan, but he is terrified of ruining the pillar of support his mother is so desperately chasing. On the eve of the wedding, Harlan gives Anne a sum of money to purchase the necessary supplies for the ceremony. While brushing past a group of disabled children in the elevator, they instantly feel a surge of compassion and immediately donate their only $500. Upon learning about this, Harlan flies into a violent rage and falsely accuses Anne of stealing his money. Harlan's true colors are completely exposed at this very moment. When she sees George get pushed to the ground by Harlan while trying to protect her, a mother's fierce protective instinct instantly erupts. After this incident, they are forced to hit the road once again. George urges his mom to swallow her pride and head back home, but Anne declares she will definitely hold her bottom line, and even though everyone she has met on the journey has been the wrong person, she still wants to find herself a new pillar of support. For their next stop, they arrive in a small city in Pittsburgh. Since their savings are already running dangerously low, they have no choice but to rent a cheap apartment. While parking, George runs into a girl named Paula. She is curious why they would come here and live in this place while driving such a nice car. Paula has a brother named Bud, who is a man of few words. But when he sees this Cadillac, he unexpectedly starts talking a blue streak. He believes that cars also have genders, and in his eyes, this particular ride is a highly attractive female. Anne is also intrigued by Bud's novel viewpoint, but unfortunately, a broke kid like this won't become Anne's target. Her target is an old acquaintance who owns a famous sewing machine brand business, making him a very suitable candidate to become the children's father. As Anne's wallet grows flatter and flatter, George advises her to ask his father for money, but she firmly expresses her refusal. That night, George and Paula go to see a movie. The two share little secrets with each other, and sparks of affection quietly grow in George's youthful heart. At the same time, Anne goes to meet that old acquaintance, but the guy turns out to be a hypocrite with a respectable facade who starts making inappropriate physical advances the moment he drops her off at her door. And after being rejected by Anne, he literally pushes her out of the car, and her messy, pathetic state is fully witnessed by George. Their savings are soon completely dried up. Anne is forced to sell the jewelry left by her grandmother just to maintain their current lifestyle. Coincidentally, she bumps into Bud at this time, who proactively extends an olive branch, hoping to invite her for a drink. But Anne isn't interested in him, always believing she deserves better, and politely turns him down with a random excuse. Right after that, she heads to an estate to attend a banquet. The host of the estate is a tremendously wealthy gentleman, who is also Anne's old friend, Charlie. Charlie treats Anne with exceptional courtesy and enthusiasm, yet there is a tall, young woman standing right beside him, which instantly makes the middle-aged Anne pale in comparison. But Anne doesn't lose heart, still maintaining her elegance in front of Charlie. After returning, she dresses up meticulously, pinning her hopes on the evening ball. Meanwhile, George can no longer stand their current situation and decides to go find his father, hoping his dad can take him back to New York. He had previously seen on a bus poster that his father's band is touring in the small city, which is a golden opportunity for him, but Anne refuses to agree to let him look for his father. Looking at his mother, who still clings to fantasies, George urges her to face reality, telling her that her youthful looks are long gone, and that between a mother with kids and a young girl, anyone would choose the latter, meaning she cannot possibly get what she wants. These words are brutally cold, but they are the absolute truth. Yet Anne is simply unwilling to admit defeat and decides to attend the ball anyway. George doesn't listen to his mother's words and heads to the venue where his father is performing. Seeing his father acting intimately with a female singer, George feels a complex mix of emotions in his heart. But he still wants to go back with his father, only for his dad to reject him under the excuse of being too busy with the tour. At this moment, he realizes his mother is right. He simply doesn't understand his father at all. Upon learning that their money is almost gone, Danny claims he has always been sending money to Anne, but since it gets returned untouched every single time, he simply stopped offering help. He even mocks Anne right in front of George. After saying this, sensing George's displeasure, Danny awkwardly stands up, pats his pockets, realizes he didn't bring any cash, and proceeds to borrow $100 from his colleagues nearby to stuff right into the pocket of the departing George. George softly questions his father. At this time, Anne arrives at the bar where she is supposed to meet Charlie. However, just as she is about to step into the elevator, she is finally defeated by reality. Anne's fantasies are shattered in an instant. She has no choice but to head to the bar counter in silent sorrow, only to notice a man who keeps smiling at her. She makes him her next target and proactively approaches to strike up a conversation. But before they can exchange more than a few words, the man promptly reveals his true identity. In the holding cell, the cornered Anne can only call Danny for help, but all she hears through the phone is the sound of him flirting with a woman, so she hangs up the phone once again. Ultimately, Bud helps bail her out, and an embarrassed Anne begs him to keep it a secret. Anne is deeply moved and can only offer him a hug as a token of gratitude. This ordinarily dressed man from the bottom of the social ladder turns out to be the first true gentleman Anne has met since leaving her family. Returning home, she finds George looking completely crestfallen, angrily cursing his father for being a total jerk. Anne, however, tells him not to say that, noting that while Danny might not be a competent father, his love for his son has never changed. Anne starts telling him about the past. When he was 2 years old and suffered from an ear infection, crying non-stop all day long, it was his father who played the clarinet to finally calm him down. Anne refuses to let adult grudges affect the children and doesn't want George to harbor resentment toward his father, viewing this as her absolute duty as a mother. Soon, they pack up and prepare to leave for their next stop. Right before departing, George and Paula share a reluctant and emotional farewell. He also finally understands the deep meaning behind his mother's advice to never look in the rearview mirror. The past can make people linger and forget to move on, but one must always learn to look forward in order to discover the beautiful scenery ahead. This time, they set their sights on St. Louis. A desperate Anne swallows her pride and arrives at the doorstep of her sister Hope, whom she had sworn never to interact with again. At the dinner table, she endures her sister's cynical mockery, but Anne declares she won't freeload and will go out to find a job. Anne lowers her status to work as a waitress in a diner, attempting to make a living on her own for the very first time. However, because of her stunning looks, she ends up getting harassed by the customers. Because of this, Anne is consequently fired from the diner. Fortunately, she lands a new job at a paint store by relying on her unique insights into color matching and her excellent communication skills. Business at the store booms because of her, boosting revenue by 20% in just 3 short weeks. When the boss, Bill, returns and hears they hired a female clerk, he is extremely displeased. But the moment he witnesses Anne's outstanding work ability and her beautiful appearance, he is instantly captivated and launches a passionate pursuit of her. George turns his recent experiences into an essay, and his teacher highly praises his literary talent. Robbie also scores the lead role in the school play. Anne and Bill quickly get engaged as well. Everything seems to be developing in a highly positive direction. Hope even sighs in amazement, marveling that her younger sister can find a good home no matter where she goes. One day, they all go to watch Robbie's performance, but just as the show begins, the principal rushes out to announce that the play must be forcibly canceled due to severe weather. Seeing a disappointed Robbie standing on stage, Bill takes the initiative to cheer loudly for him. Later, the family goes out for a picnic, blessing each other in a warm and harmonious atmosphere. Bill goes out of his way to shower Anne with praise, providing her with massive emotional value and making their relationship incredibly intimate. Just as Anne believes she has finally met the right man, a strange woman suddenly appears out of nowhere. It turns out Bill is the heir to a family fortune, with his family running a massive paint chain enterprise. However, he suffers from a mental illness, acting like a child who cannot distinguish right from wrong, and has actually gotten engaged to 7 different women over the past 2 years. To make up for the emotional damage Anne has suffered, the family offers her a hefty sum of compensation money. Anne's heart is filled with extreme bitterness, as every time she thinks she has found a pillar of support, it turns into a complete joke over and over again. A deeply wounded Anne no longer wants to live under someone else's roof and decides to leave with her sons. Their destination this time is Hollywood, taking the acting-obsessed Robbie to chase his dreams. But this time, George flat out refuses to keep moving. He has made new friends here, his teacher appreciates his writing, and George has fully adapted to life in this town. He is sick and tired of the wandering journey and demands to stay at his aunt's house. A furious Anne confronts her sister, questioning why she allowed George to stay without her explicit permission. But all of this is George's own voluntary choice, and he blames his mother for never truly understanding him. The mother and son part on terrible terms. Anne hits the road with Robbie. She once taught George never to look back, yet this time, she finds herself constantly glancing back in the rearview mirror. In reality, George doesn't genuinely want to stay. He merely hopes to gain his mother's attention and validation. He assumed Anne would turn back to forcibly take him with her, but he severely underestimated his mother's iron determination. During the subsequent journey, having absolutely zero income, Anne resorts to picking up hitchhikers to make some extra cash. However, a seemingly harmless couple ends up hijacking Anne with a dagger right after getting out of the car. The man orders Robbie to grab the cash, but Robbie pulls out his mother's handgun instead, aiming it tremblingly at the attacker. After fending off the man, Anne kindly persuades the girl to leave with them. Following a brief internal struggle, the girl also chooses to get in the car and leave the dangerous man behind. Who would have thought that during a rest stop, the girl would steal their luggage, completely wipe out the cash in the car, and rendezvous with the previous robber to escape? Now they are left with a grand total of $67. Anne's kindness has once again plunged her into a desperate predicament. Robbie has no choice but to call George for help. It is only at this moment that George realizes his mother, terrified he would be mistreated while staying at his aunt's house, left all of Bill's compensation money with her. This news deeply moves George, making him finally realize that while his mother may not be perfect, her fierce love for her children has never wavered. Just as Anne puts the money into her backpack, George also spots that copy of The Catcher in the Rye. The trio sets off once again, traveling day and night until they finally arrive in the city of dreams, Los Angeles. After selling the Cadillac that had accompanied them all the way, they settle down in a slightly run-down house. One day, on her way home from shopping, Anne spots an ad recruiting background extras. When she returns home, she discovers Danny sitting in the living room. He managed to track them down through a postcard George had sent, wanting to take them back to New York to start over. He even arrogantly assumes that all of this is just Anne's little test. Having gone through this chaotic journey, Anne has found her true self, growing into a mature woman capable of holding her own. She now knows with absolute clarity that she no longer needs marriage to secure a pillar of support. Danny can only leave in disappointment, but he expresses his hope that if Anne ever changes her mind, she can still return to his side. All three of them secure jobs as background extras, and their lives finally show some signs of improvement. One day, Anne unluckily gets her foot stepped on by a horse, but this blessing in disguise allows her to meet the studio producer. The producer is immediately captivated by Anne's stunning beauty. She seizes the perfect opportunity to introduce Robbie to the producer. The man readily agrees to arrange an acting gig for Robbie, making the boy incredibly thrilled. Everything is finally heading in a fantastic direction, but a sudden phone call shatters all of this, revealing that Danny has unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack. George never expected that their parting at the concert would turn out to be the final time the father and son would see each other, and he collapses into his mother's arms, weeping uncontrollably. Anne gently strokes his back to offer him much-needed comfort. Only after experiencing a true loss does George finally understand what his father truly meant to him. Therefore, he decides to head to New York to attend the funeral and stay there to pursue his dream of becoming a writer. And this time, Anne fully respects his choice. George returns to his school in New York, sharing the myriad of experiences from this epic road trip with his classmates. As he looks back on the past, he realizes that he incredibly misses the time spent alongside his mother. At this moment, he also understands that a true home is simply wherever your family is. Robbie also lands a solid role on the movie set, but due to extreme nervousness, his performance is highly unsatisfactory, and his co-stars are quite annoyed with him. This exact scene happens to be witnessed by the returning George. He steps up to hype Robbie up, helping him analyze the plot and fully immerse himself in the character. That innate acting talent makes him shine brilliantly in this very moment. This scene also successfully catches the director's undivided attention. When Anne arrives, she discovers that George has unexpectedly started acting. Just like that, George unexpectedly becomes an actor. Meanwhile, Robbie also discovers his true area of expertise, designing and coordinating outfits for the cast. Anne still has no shortage of suitors around her, but she turns them all down one by one. Because a woman doesn't need to cling to marriage, much less rely on a man to validate her worth. The courage to independently pursue one's true self is the ultimate confidence in life. Home is not a fixed physical residence, but rather the companionship and mutual understanding of family. On the journey of growing up, there is no need to drown in the past. Through forward exploration, one will find their own positioning and realize that the most reliable pillar of support will always be oneself.